No worries.
Full disclosure, Papa's in the hospital still, and it's not looking good. So I've been
I'm
busy.
sorry to hear that.
It happens. But yeah, no, I will get that done.
Cool.
All right, let's fucking rock and roll this thing.
So, omnibus, Southwest, Santos.
I was gonna say omnibus, Santos, Southwest, because Southwest is gonna be a quick piece, don't you think?
True. True. And you got to figure out a way to make the title like something around the lines of like planes, trains, and automobiles, but
Oh, do you want to start with Southwest then?
like
As in,
planes, buses, and liars or something. Buses, planes.
well, if we started with planes, we can go with trains next. So we could do planes, then Santos, then omnibus, and then it makes sense. Planes, trains, because it was a train wreck, and automobiles.
I like it.
All right. Let's rock and roll, baby. I'm not going to do the intro because you can't hear it anyways. And I just don't like doing that to you. Yeah, he's just vibing. He's just vibing right now. All right. 3, 2. It's not really going to be 3, 2, 1 because realistically, I have to take the same hand and go down and hit record. So it's going to be like 3, 2, 1.
And you always open it
Done.
up
Yeah,
anyways
whatever. Shut up.
by
Whatever.
saying it's live. So
And we are live.
we're zooming.
We are zooming right now, and we have a special guest with us today.
Yes, we
You
do.
you
And
can't.
it's not me.
It's not, and it's not me either. It's my sweet little 1-year-old boy who woke up in the middle of the night while mommy was taking a shower. So Charlie's with us today. I hope he learned something, along with all of you guys.
Well, he'll definitely learn a lot because we're in our headphones and
Right.
he doesn't have headphones on. So he's not hearing anything that we have to say.
Yeah. Hold on
Do
one
you
second.
want to take a pause?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to pass off my child to my wife.
Oh, okay. Look at her. She's so crafty. She didn't even come into the Zoom.
Oh no. You know what? For whatever reason, she gets very nervous.
She
Um,
doesn't want to be YouTube viral. I don't know why.
yeah, her looks would break the internet.
That's true.
Did you hear? Shut up. We have a whole lot of fun stuff to get to tonight. And in some cases it is fun. In other cases, it's funny. And
Hmm.
in some cases, it's not fun at all.
Yeah, it's some good, some bad, and some really ugly.
Yeah.
Uh, I I'd be remiss to miss like the Merry Christmases and Happy Hanukkahs to
Yes.
the MadLibs community. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I hope
Yes.
Santa treated everyone well and that they got everything that their little hearts desired. And if they don't celebrate any of those holidays, sorry everyone else got to be joyous. I hope you had a joyous weekend.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is a joyous occasion.
Yeah. Oh,
With
it's
the
great.
end of the year grind. For a lot of people at work, I know end of year, end of quarter,
Yeah.
a lot going on, and so sometimes the weekend is celebration enough. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Look at you. You're so inclusive.
I try, I try.
And you
I fail
succeed.
though sometimes. I fail.
Yeah.
Um, but
No.
yeah, I think we're going to talk about inclusivity, about the omnibus and all that it has. We got that's the good, I would say.
Yeah.
The bad, we got Southwest really struggling,
Yeah.
and the ugly, not only physical stature but the ugliness of a resume. George
That,
Santos.
that is incredibly mean.
I know. I wanted to play both sides of the spectrum here of the naughty and nice, to really play
Oh,
up the
Okay.
Christmas theme. I wanted to
And that's fair.
show
That's fair.
what people on the nice list would say and what people on the naughty list would say. So going into 2023, you can really set your standards and really calibrate how you're going to behave throughout the year and where you want to fall on the list.
Jesus. hmm
Mm-hmm. So, what do you
hmm
want to start with, Kev? Where do you want to take us?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and knock out Southwest? Because this is something that I wasn't necessarily paying a ton of attention to until I
Mm-hmm.
got in the shower the other day. And I
Mm-hmm.
was trying not to trigger Alexa. That was a pause for anybody who's listening to this with volume on, just like we did last week. Um, so I was talking to Alexa and I said, Alexa, uh, tell me what's going on in the news. And my father-in-law uses my Amazon account. Um, so take that, Jeff Bezos. Um, but he uses it for like his all of his Alexa apps, all of his Fire Sticks, all that kind of stuff. And when he talks to Alexa, he always makes sure that the news source is Fox News.
Okay.
So I had to change that because it was trying to give me a bunch of news from Fox News. And I was like, yeah, this is not what I need right now. So now uh, she would not give me PBS NewsHour, but she gave me NPR.
Okay.
I was okay with it. You know what I mean? They do have a little bit of a left lean, more than a little bit, but that's okay because you know what? I do feel like NPR is usually pretty factual, at least in my experience thus far. And it went into the NPR news. And the first thing it talked about was everything that was going on with the planes. And, you know, it's something that I should have kind of had in the forefront of my mind with all the like the winter storms that were going on, like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about on our last podcast. And, but I didn't realize just how many cancellations there were as far as flights go. And I want to say it was somewhere north of 3,000 flights.
Yeah.
Well, and then the news article took a big old twist because everybody teases Southwest because Southwest Airlines is notorious for changing flights and dropping flights and everything like that. Um, they don't even give you a seat number, if I remember correctly.
That I don't know. I've never actually flown Southwest. I
I
know it gets like its customer service
Yeah,
is prided on. Like they have
yeah,
the best flight attendants and the happiest staff, and like they're supposedly one of the best airlines due to those things.
yeah,
But this cancellation
yeah.
situation is really ugly.
Well, I want to say like it was over 50% of those cancellations were Southwest
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
those
Oh no, no.
3,000.
Yeah, it was much higher than that. And for instance, tomorrow they have
Mhm.
cancellations. And so
Ah,
around the country there are 2,600 cancellations of flights that have been made. Um,
Jeez.
only 140 of them are not Southwest. So 2,600 flights are canceled tomorrow, Wednesday, December 28th. 140 of those are from the array of airlines, and
Delta, United,
the long
American.
the so that would be what 2360. So of the 2,600, 2,360 are Southwest, and that's as of right now. That's not to say there won't be more tomorrow.
That's
Um,
incredible. And now from what I've heard, Southwest has been blaming it on um shortage of pilots.
it's a whole bunch of things, and I watched a couple of news broadcasts and read some articles, but it really has a lot to do with their system itself, not like an electronic system, the way they manage their planes, their crews, their pilots, everything. And it's different from most other airlines in the sense that it's not hub based. It's like they have these spokes. And so the idea, or sorry, not hubs and spokes, but they actually go point to point. So if you take like four major cities, right? So we'll do um, offhand, we'll say Seattle, San Francisco, Phoenix, Arizona, and Las Vegas. And like, let's say they're flying to these four, the plane will touch down on four separate points. So it'll go from Seattle to San Francisco to Phoenix to Las Vegas and then back to Seattle. Well, if you have the Phoenix to Las Vegas flight, but that plane never made it from Seattle because everything was canceled in Seattle, no matter what airline you were on because of the ice. Some
Right.
great TikToks of watching people slide all over the place.
Yeah.
If you had the flight that was on the back end of that point to point where Seattle wasn't flying out, but you had a plane that was supposed to get to Phoenix from Seattle eventually, it just never got there. And so when we operate out of a hub and spoke situation, so like a major hub is our, home area of Chicago. O'Hare Airport is a hub. And if
Right.
Chicago, let's say, is absolutely shut down, they can shut that down and then reroute planes elsewhere. Because if it's a hub, like Delta, I think is based in Atlanta. So
Hmm.
they have planes that fly from Atlanta to Chicago and then Chicago back. And like a hub is in Chicago and a hub is in Atlanta. So if you're getting from Atlanta to, let's say, Seattle, you might go Atlanta to Chicago, Chicago to Seattle. Well, if
Right.
Chicago's shut down, they'll reroute other planes and act accordingly, right? Southwest can't do that because they are all over the place. They're scattered. They're not reconnecting. And because there are so many issues with the shutdowns, now they were no longer even able to locate like certain crews. Like they couldn't keep up with how many shutdowns there were. So that's what Pete Buttigieg was criticizing. Not that there were shutdowns and cancellations, but they couldn't even identify where like baggage was, plane crews, pilots. They couldn't identify logistically where any of this stuff was. So it's not only the cancellations; they don't even know how to organize this and come back from it. This isn't going to be a couple days. This could take weeks to reorganize and get all of the information to then get back on track.
Yeah. I mean, and that was something that the article that I had read had mentioned is just the piles and piles of either luggage that was left behind or luggage that has been lost. Um, and I don't recall if it had a dollar figure in there, like what it's worth. And obviously, that might not be something that they have the information on yet, just because it's still so fresh. And I'm sure I hope they're not going through everyone's luggage. But I mean, it has to be a massive amount of money just in people's clothing, jewelry, uh, whatever, accessories, things like that. I mean, that's, um, and then to store all of that.
Yeah, and store it safely, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
as far as we know, like a lot of this luggage is just going to be gone, right? Because it's going to be so hard to track down, a person by their name, and then go into their system and see, okay, this person bought with this credit card, which is linked to this address, reach out to them, call them, find out if that is who they are, if they left luggage. Like that's one person
Yeah.
on one flight
Right.
out of literally yesterday, we just said 2,300 plus flights were canceled. And there were hundreds of people on every single flight. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars in luggage
Right. Yeah.
for like possibly millions of people. Like
Yeah.
over the next 2 weeks, the amount of luggage that's going to be left behind,
Oh yeah.
it's just going
It's
to be
gonna end up.
absolutely.
It'll end up at the luggage auctions.
Do they have those?
Yeah, I'm almost 100% certain.
Holy cow! I mean that makes sense. But like
Sure, I can Google it.
unclaimed baggage, the only lost luggage store.
Yeah.
Yeah, how to buy airline luggage that goes unclaimed.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so here's another thing. Like we're talking about 3,250 had already been canceled as of Tuesday for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, the next largest, I think it says, by contrast, competitors, Alaska Airlines. Alaska Airlines has canceled 10% of their flights.
Right.
That's going to and from Alaska. Like it would make sense that they're having some issues with flights right now.
Hmm.
and they only canceled 10% of their flights, whereas Southwest has canceled 85% of
Yeah.
all canceled flights in America right now. And I do understand, like, one of their major destinations is Chicago and Denver, which were hammered with snow
Right.
and freezing conditions that would make it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Similarly, like Nashville is another major airport. All of these major airports are like hubs for a lot of these other airlines where they can redirect flights. Whereas it's not just a point on the map for them to go where all of a sudden you don't know where it is because it's not coming back to one central spot over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. You know, I'm looking on this unclaimed baggage site, and I will tell you right now, they do not price it like it's something they found. Um, I mean, there's no jacket on here for less than $270. I just clicked on winter gear. Um,
Oh, did you really? You started looking?
oh yeah, well, I just like, I mean, I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder like how much if they're selling this stuff at like a discount. Um, like there's some things you can find on here,
Which
but
one did you
like,
go to? Unclaimedbaggage.com?
yes.
Okay, winter and ski collection.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm found now as you scroll further down, you can find some that are cheaper, but they're all like no name brands. But you can
Oh,
like
well, yeah,
for sure, like you're finding like right up at the top, it's like I don't know if Jay Lindenberg is a good brand, but it just looks like a jacket to me, and it's $239. I can go buy a nice new Columbia jacket for that much, I think.
well, okay, but for point of reference, that Hermes jacket, Hermes, as I like to say, is being sold for $1,000. It usually sells for 1,500,
Yeah,
and it's sold out. So
interesting. Yeah, I see a Canadian Goose jacket on here too. Anyways, that's
yeah,
enough. That's enough shopping while we podcast here. It, it's a very, I mean, it's a serious situation. I do know
it
that,
is.
you know, our friend Joey B, uh, says he's going to crack down on these people. He's going to come down on him. He's going to get things, flowing and fixed, and people are going to be held accountable, which I think is one of his favorite things to say. Um, so I mean,
Well, I was going to say I think you know airlines are very important, right? It's an incredible way to travel, especially because we don't for some reason have a speed rail in this country yet. But with that said, I think it's important to hold these airlines responsible, and like the government has bailed them out time and time again,
right?
financially, and then all of a sudden when they get those financial injections, they do the wrong thing, they do the greedy thing. And
Yeah,
so I think that's with a lot of these utility type organizations, whether it's energy companies, um, you know airlines, anything that internet companies, like these companies where it almost becomes a sense of utility. And now it's not a sign of luxury to go flying anymore. It's a sign of like I need to get to my parents, or whatever. Um, when you're
it's
running a
just
company
another
like that,
it's another mode of transportation now. It's not
right?
like for the rich and
Or
famous.
like you can't, like, internet in their 90s. I remember when we first got the internet, it was a big deal in my household. Now, you don't go to anyone's house that doesn't have the internet now, like, or some sort of hotspot situation or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, it's become a utility, and therefore, like, there needs to be more regulation on these companies, not only in, like, obviously, there's a lot of regulations with planes and how they're maintained and when they fly, et cetera, pilot restrictions, but they also need to be maintained, like the price gouging that can happen, et cetera, and
right.
how they operate their business. Like there should be no bailouts for these companies that make billions of dollars, but then all of a sudden mismanage that money and can put us in a position where we can't fly because Southwest went under because they ran their business really poorly, and now
You
we
know
have
what?
one less competitor.
you're saying this right now, and it's reminding me of something, and I can't remember what it was. Um, but it happened around like 2008, 2009, where like companies were like totally mismanaging the way that they were doing things, and then the government bailed them out, and then
Mhm.
nobody went to jail. And all the CEOs and higher ups just took giant bonuses. Do you know what I'm?
There's a movie
Yeah,
about that time period.
big tall man or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Big talls, big and
Big
tall,
tall,
big and
big,
tall.
big and
Yeah,
tall.
it was surrounding the tailor industry and
Yeah.
how rampant uh, tailors were copying fields, measuring the inseam.
Yeah. I like how you just took it to another level there.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, God. Yeah.
um,
I'm getting
so we
fired
got
up. I'm getting
so
all fired
so
up,
and
and I haven't
also
even watched The Big Short yet.
I know, and so it's funny. Also, as a side note, because we're going to be wrapping up this whole plane segment, right? Uh, I thought it was funny. I was watching a trailer for a new movie,
Yeah.
and it's with Gerard Butler. And
Ooh.
I'm a big Gerard Butler guy.
Yeah.
Him and his action movies, romance, rom coms, whatever. I like them all. I just gravitate towards them. And he's in this movie, and he's a pilot. And then this plane is also escorting a prisoner to a destination, and
Hmm.
supposedly this prisoner is a really bad man, and it definitely has some Green Mile vibes because like on steps this huge black man, like muscles and
Yeah.
all that, and he looks super intimidating, and he looks very like just angry in the face,
Yeah. I was getting
and
Con Air vibes.
Con Air, it's Green
Yeah.
Mile, it's all this, and so basically in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything. I haven't seen it. The
Yeah.
plane goes down, lands on this island or something, and there's like a junta militant group, and they basically Gerard Butler and this uh, black prisoner guy um, team up and basically save the rest of the plane because the people on the plane have been taken prisoner and all that
Oh,
hostage. And so they're like, all of a sudden this pilot becomes SEAL Team 6 level, military guy. And the
classic Gerard
prisoner,
Butler.
yeah, and the prisoner was, an Army Ranger or something all of a sudden. Here nor there.
Yeah.
Long story short, guess the title of the movie.
Oh, God. The
It's a very
prisoner.
simple title.
The prisoner. No,
No,
it's already done.
Plane.
Oh,
Plane. That is the title of this movie. Plane.
Dude, Hollywood's getting lazy.
Not even I guess they couldn't do Airplane because Airplane was a comedy and it was
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious. So it's just Plane. And the Southwest situation kind of reminds me of it in the sense that it looks shiny. It seemed to be this great enterprise,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to flop, just like Southwest did over these holidays.
Yeah.
All right, so we got planes out of the
Speaking of
way. What we got next?
speaking of flops, I would like to just in order to make my titling of this episode easier, um, I want to talk about George Santos.
That train wreck of a guy.
Nailed it. Good job, Brian. Well done.
Thanks, Bear, for the assist. My dog in the background barking as I made the pun.
Look at us just having our family in the podcast with us today.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so this is a very interesting story for me, and this news is this isn't anything really new. It's just like now there's validation, there's confirmation, um, that basically that what everybody had thought and what they were looking into has become true, or not become true. That is true, I should say.
It's
But
true about it not being true.
yeah,
Anything you said.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, anything George Santos said or anything that was on his resume, don't take that to the bank. Um, Especially a 2008 bank, because they will cash that check. They won't even think twice. So George Santos, he's of New York. Um, ran to be a part of Congress. Um, he kind of ran as a Republican Jewish uh, gay gentleman. Just basically going down the tally and checking off anything that he could,
Hmm.
as far as ways to be the first. Um, and although he did not lie about being a Republican, you know what? I was going to try to go through all of those things and like say what it was true, but like there's still something in there that's not. He is Republican. That's a check mark. That gets the blue check mark of verification from the MadLibs podcast.
And he didn't just buy it like on Twitter. It's
Correct.
verified by the
This is
MadLibs pod.
Yeah, this is verified. It's a black check mark with us. Um, he's not Jewish. He's Christian. He's
Mhm.
trying to spin this story now that
His
his
grandparents or something.
his grandmother was Jewish, but his mother adopted the Christian faith. Um, and he is gay. He gets a check mark for that too. But only having two out of the three, this is not a Meatloaf song. So I can't say it's not that bad. It is. Just in you trying to uh identify yourself in this political game, you're already messing up. Um, but this is a really interesting story. So he is the congressman elect for New York, and I don't, Brian, do you know what district it is? I know he's
Was it
from
NY9?
I believe so. I know that he's from Queens. Um,
Oh, sorry, the third congressional district.
Boom, there you go.
And it would make sense, Queens. The
Yeah,
Bronx is AOC. Yeah, Long Island and Queens. So in Long Island, this was actually a very, very close race, by the way.
yes, yes,
But it usually Long Island and Queens generally do favor a more conservative, not like
yeah,
super conservative, but like
yeah.
a more conservative congressperson.
So before we really delve into this, I want to hit a couple of the highlights here. So he campaigned on a whole lot of things. He campaigned on like a rags to riches story, came from nothing, went to a couple of very elite colleges. I know
He went to NYU.
NYU, but there was another one too.
It says he graduated from Baruch College in
Baruch.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
Baruch.
Is it Baruch or Baruch?
I don't know.
Well,
I've never been there.
let's just say it both ways.
I'm
So
like
like that way.
Santos. I've never been there. Take a second, let it marinate.
That's real good. God, that is rich.
I don't think he probably said it right either.
Probably not. That's how they knew he didn't go there. Um, so he's saying he went to all these, prestigious colleges, and he continues on to he worked for some huge names on Wall Street. What
Goldman
was it?
Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, Citibank.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some real heavy hitters. And it started out, and I think it might have been New York Times or the New York Post that originally started looking into this. But
Had to have been the Times.
I think it was. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure because I know that a lot of the New York Times article that I read was
Mm-hmm.
his interview with the Post.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they started doing some digging, some fact checking, if you will, and the colleges had no record of him. Not only that, Goldman Sachs and Citibank had no record of him. Um, this list kind of goes on, and it gets really petty at some points too. Not that that's not petty in and of itself, but it gets really petty at this point where he talks about when he was in Orlando, because he lived in Florida for some time. Part of his campaign was that like he knew people. Oh God, forgive me, Brian. What was the name of the show? What was the
The Pulse
Pulse?
gay club, the nightclub,
Yeah, he
which
said
was
that.
known for being a gay nightclub.
Yeah, he said that like seven of the people with the company that he worked for, they died. Like they even fact checked that, couldn't find any of these names. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like,
he said that they worked for a company that
yeah,
he had started up in Florida,
correct. Yeah,
and that was not true.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, you go back to the whole Jewish thing too. So there's a paper called the Forward, or a news source called The Forward, and it's a Jewish publication. They go into the whole thing about him misleading voters with his Jewish ancestry too. So I mean, the list really goes on and on, and it's worth taking a look through and seeing what he said versus what's reality. But the gist of the story
Well,
is,
and he also talked about the fact that he owned 13 properties, and he
oh
kind of
yes,
campaigned
yes,
he campaigned on the idea that he was this landlord and people weren't paying their rents, right? Which
yes,
strikes a chord with the right and in the Republican Party of like, oh, these people are just, parasites on the system and blah blah blah. Here's this
yeah,
hardworking guy that came from nothing, built himself up, owns 13 properties, and now these people aren't even paying their fucking rent. And so he really played into that, like, there were these leeches taking advantage of him, trying to own and operate these 13 properties. And
right.
that is completely untrue. Doesn't even own any properties.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think that they did find out that he owned a rental property in Brazil, which
His
is real.
family owns property. George Santos, he told the Post, George Santos does not own any properties. So his family owns a
Okay,
property, and there might be multiple, and there might be one in Brazil where his Jewish grandmother is from,
yeah,
whatever the case is. And then the other thing that is really tricky was and this is all from the NY Times, so you can look this up. He lent $700,000 to his congressional campaign,
yeah,
but he has like all these unpaid debts and stuff. So he has like
correct, yeah,
a lot of issues on his own financial, and that's totally fine. Like we have that 25-year
oh
old
yeah,
Frost from Florida, the first Gen Z elect,
yeah,
and he can't get a fucking place in Washington, D.C. because he has mediocre credit and he
yeah,
hasn't started making a congressional salary yet. And he
yeah.
has all of this debt from him like financing his campaign that he hasn't been able to pay off yet.
He
And
should
so
call
like
he should call AOC and just
so
be like, yo,
AOC did make a post about this to like
yeah,
prove a point. And AOC reached out and said, like, I've dealt with the same thing. Let me help you out and we'll get you connected with the right people to find the right housing and all of
yeah,
that. And it was really cool. But just to go and show you, like, it can be very difficult. And that's
yeah,
okay to have financial issues. Like, there is almost no middle class now in
yeah.
America. Like, it's vanished at this point. And so I'm not criticizing that, but like, where did you get $700,000 to lend your campaign in order to run that campaign? And if you have all of these financial issues, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
now that's also being investigated, and it needs to be investigated by the Ways and Means Committee, which just did the Trump tax returns.
Yeah.
They need
Yep.
to investigate, or the House Ethics Committee, and investigate like, where is this coming from? How did he do this? Because obviously this man is filled with lies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say, uh, without doing the math, I would say 90% of his resume was bullshit. I think that's a conservative estimate.
Yeah,
And
I mean, he even spelled his name wrong. So, no, I'm just kidding.
yeah, right. Shut up. Um, I was gonna make a joke when we were talking about his family owning property in Brazil, and I was gonna say the only thing that he owned in Brazil was a felony charge. I don't know if it was a felony, but he was arrested in Brazil for something.
Yeah, and he, made this claim that he's never been
Yeah,
charged with
never been
crimes. He's
charged,
super
never
clean and
never
all
broken the
that.
law.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like in politics, you're going to embellish, right? You're going to
Certainly.
accomplish all of these great things. You're obviously not going to talk about, I'm a great communicator and I'm going to build bipartisan relationships. But yeah, I just had a fight with my wife, 2 weeks ago. Like, you're not
Right.
going to talk about everything. You're going to embellish the good but you can't lie. It's okay
Right.
to maybe exaggerate, like, oh, uh, this is on the same level of Herschel Walker, essentially, right? Where
Right.
Herschel
Yeah.
Walker is like, I was a valedictorian. Bitch, you didn't even graduate.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. It's not only like you were number three in the class and you kind of embellished and said you were the valedictorian, you were 2 spots away and .01 GPA away. No, no,
Right.
no, no.
Yeah.
This is you didn't even go to the school. Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
But here's
Yeah.
the thing, you can't really be held accountable for lying because this isn't like you're under oath. This
Well,
isn't.
and that's the thing too, is like there's nothing that they can't take the seat away from him. They can put him in front of an ethics committee.
Mhm.
Um, but there's no foundation for which, the House can say, okay, listen, you're not welcome in. Um, which to me is a little absurd. Um, but I mean, like Brian and I were talking about earlier, lying to become a professional liar, uh, is really what it comes down to here. He's lied his way into Congress so that he can continue to lie, and you know, well, I can't say what he would do in the future. I was going to say and do no good, but who knows? Maybe he would have gone in there and really,
I would
really done
suspect,
something.
one thing I learned getting my degree in history, and the reason we study history is we look for patterns of behavior. And looking at this man's pattern of behavior, I think it's safe to say he's going to do no
Yeah,
good. So I think
yeah.
it's a
I
safe
mean,
assumption that you made there.
it's it's a very interesting story. Um, one that, like, as I'm sure you can tell, it boggles my mind a little bit. Like, it's just so absurd. Um, that there was no aspect of his story other than his name that was accurate. Like, maybe he's a Democrat. I don't even know what to believe anymore, Brian.
Like he's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, or like
No, just
he's
like
trying to.
I'm just saying that he lied about everything else.
I don't even know if that's like a backhanded,
It's
like,
not. No, it's not. It's truly not.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, 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 no. You can take that one.
Um,
You can take that one at face value.
okay. I don't know. I don't think this guy is anything. I think he's a puppet, to be honest. Like, I think they found a quote unquote gay Jewish man that kind of checks the boxes of, very similarly, like Lindsey Graham, um,
He's like a Milo or Milo
Yiannopoulos.
Yiannopoulos.
Well, I look at it like the same way Lindsey Graham paraded Herschel Walker
Right.
is like, see, not all Republicans are straight white men that hate whatever blacks. It's like we have a black man here, and I think they were trying to do the same thing with Santos. See, we have gays in our party, we
Yeah.
have Jews in our party. We don't hate Jewish people, and I think that's what they were trying to do here, and it's now backfiring because I do think that $700,000 was obviously from some major party player.
Yeah. Speaking
Probably
of
not McConnell himself, but like someone to maybe win this close district because they saw it could possibly flip.
well,
So
and
let's
most
win that middle ground of people. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's okay. Most of the Republicans had actually kind of remained silent.
On
Whereas, like,
DeSantis thing?
yeah, yeah. Whereas most Democrats had spoken out and said something already. Um, and it had a long list of the people that hadn't said anything in the Times article. But neither here nor there. Um, it's odd because you've got someone else who's running for the Republican Party for a 2024 bid who just put out a new clothing line that made his initials look like a swastika. So it's gonna be a really interesting time in
Wait.
politics.
What's that?
Did you not see the new Yeezy clothing line? Maybe it was
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Did you
Um,
see? Did you see the NY Times did a crossword and they released it, and then they pulled it, realizing it looked kind of like a swastika, just the way the black patterns fit, and they
oh,
were like, "Ah, shit!" And they made a special like message on Twitter and like other
Yeah.
things to like say like this was an accident, it's not purposeful, or like the NY
Yeah.
Times, we have a bunch of Jewish people like working here, so it's not like we're trying to, make a statement. Um, but you made a little note there of Democrats here in this situation, kind of coming out and saying something, and like Zimmerman, the guy who faced him,
Yeah.
is Robert Zimmerman. And this was a very, very tight race that came down to, the final hours of tabulations. He's calling for Santos to resign, and then they run a new special election given this new information. And I'm like, A, that's stupid. But B, what was Zimmerman's campaign doing? Like, don't you look up the dirt on your competitor? Like, don't you want to know and fact check everything that they're saying? And
You would
so,
think
like,
you
my
would.
question then is like, this was a big gap on the Democratic Party. Like, you could have asked anyone about this guy and said, like, okay, all of these claims, like, let's make sure that there is like is a talking point, during debates or during the campaign. You want to have that firepower. We live in Illinois, and Kev, you and I both know
Yeah.
that those political campaign ads are fucking vicious. I mean, they talk about JB Pritzker removed
Right.
his
Right.
toilet
Right.
seats so he didn't have to pay taxes. And it's like, wait, what? The amount of scrutiny that goes into political campaigning in the state of Illinois is
Right.
baffling.
Yeah.
So, how in the state of New York, in one of the most populated areas, did they miss this?
Yeah.
Especially when they knew this would be so highly contested. I don't know. Big miss.
Yeah.
And if
I
they
don't
run a special election, it shouldn't be Zimmerman. It should be someone that knows what the fuck they're doing.
now now, Brian. It could have been someone on Zimmerman's team who, Zimmerman gave him a chance and the kid screwed the pooch clearly.
It's
Because I
train
think,
wrecks all around. Train wrecks all
yeah.
around.
Well, I'm just speaking of train wrecks. If we want the title of this episode to go through, we're gonna have to start talking about the omnibus because we're already at 45 minutes.
Okay,
Uh,
so we're at planes. We've done
yep.
trains. Now we got to talk about automobiles, and we'll stick with buses. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. So the omnibus passed.
It did.
Hooray.
It was. We talked a little bit about it with on the last podcast right before Christmas that
Yeah.
McConnell kind of used his leverage and just got it through the Senate, which was not necessarily anticipated. There was thought to be a fight, a standstill, and that it wouldn't get passed because then all of a sudden the House takes over in January 4th, I think it is,
Hmm.
that or January 3rd, the new House members will be sworn in, and it would not pass the House with a Republican controlled. So it did pass because it's Democrat controlled now, and McConnell was able to. McConnell, the Republican minority leader,
Right.
pushed it through on their side, so there was no filibuster.
Yeah. Which is great.
Mhm.
It's always good to have, a budget.
No matter how much it's for.
Yeah. Yeah. Therein lies the problem. I listened to Rand Paul talk shit about this whole thing about and when they came out with it, they were supposed to come out with it on September 30th. They didn't do it. They gave themselves a 30-day extension. And then what did they do after that 30-day extension? They gave themselves another extension. And he's like, and when did they finally write this? In the middle of the night, 1 a.m. And like he just told this big like horror story of them like fucking coming up with the omnibus. And I think he might have just been jealous.
Okay, well, let's take a step back from there
Yeah.
because how long has it taken George R. R. Martin to write, his next book in the Game of Thrones? And that's like several hundred. This was like 4,100 pages.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
That said, Rand Paul has probably never personally read
Yeah.
a piece of legislation. He
Yeah.
has minions do that for him, like most politicians. Like you're very busy, you got a lot of functions. You
Right.
have aides and not correspondents. You have aides that read those things for you and summarize and give you the synopsis and like all the key points. Like you know, so Rand Paul is full of shit.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit the ground running on this because this is
Okay, go
it's
for it.
it well no, it's a lot to cover and I want to hit some of the
Yeah,
highlights.
yeah,
And I do want to Brian had sent me over this article that didn't just tell you what the spending is going to be for 2023, but what the increase is over 2022, which I think is pretty neato torpedo.
yeah.
Uh,
Washington Post is probably my second go-to source behind the NY Times. And I thought they did a really nice job of breaking this down piece by piece. Um, when it says what's inside the 1.7 trillion omnibus spending for the next fiscal year, uh, the 2023 fiscal year, is there anything that stands out to you, Kevin?
oh, Brian, are you baiting me into this one? I think I know exactly what you want me to say.
I
Want me to talk about this?
I consider myself a master baiter, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to bait you. Yes.
Oh, you're probably talking about there's only a $0.4 billion increase in spending on agriculture.
No, that is
No,
not it. No,
you're looking for a bigger number, aren't you?
I'm looking for a really big number.
Oh, like a $69.3 billion increase in defense spending.
Yes, there it is. There it is.
um,
Absolutely baffling to me.
I don't know how we can just keep going up. I mean, quite literally in a matter of probably like 2 or 3 more years, we're going to be flirting with that like $1 trillion mark. That's bizarre, dude.
Yeah,
That's bizarre. Like
yeah.
literally, it's not going to be like a $1.7 trillion. Well, no, probably still be $1.7 trillion, and it'll just say $1 trillion in defense spending.
I think to their defense of defense spending, it is nice to see that there was a 4.6% pay raise for service members.
Yeah,
Given, the inflation, yes, they don't have, you know, housing to pay for and all that. They do have families back home sometimes
yeah,
that they are supporting, and therefore, those families are dealing with inflation. You don't have to pay the inflation price maybe at the barracks, but your family does back home. And
right.
so that's a key ingredient. I think I was very happy with that. I do think, there's money to build naval ships, which I think is becoming important given the intensity or the tensions rising, like the waves in the Pacific
Yeah,
between China and the United States, and also North Korea. Like, we want to have a large naval force. We have the largest naval force in the world, but I think we have the largest naval force. Um,
I would say without a doubt.
no, China does. So we
Oh,
want to continue building. And so as of 2020, we might have crept up, but we were behind even North Korea and Russia. So it makes sense that they're trying to build that up, um,
that's
in order
incredible, dude.
to continue building our security forces in the Pacific. Um,
Hmm.
they wanted to continue, repairing the aircrafts and stuff like that. And I do understand we've given a lot away to Ukraine. And when they say, hey, we're giving away billions of dollars to Ukraine in aid for their military defense against Russia, um, they're not giving away like, here's $4 billion to your bank account, do with it what you
Right.
want. It's billions of dollars in aid in the sense of like, here is the Patriot missile system, like here's this, that, and the other thing. Um, because if you just gave them money, like they wouldn't be able to create
Yeah.
anything in time
Right.
to actually have an impact. So I do understand them wanting to restore the forces that we've essentially donated over to Ukraine to fight our what is essentially our proxy war.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, I still think it's incredible how much um, how much is spent in the military. Like,
That's
just how filthy rich these military companies got. The moment this passed, I didn't watch the stock market, but I have no doubt in my mind that the Northrop Grummons of the world, the Lockheed Martins,
Yeah.
et cetera, just saw their stocks flourish.
Right.
Another really important ingredient here of the defense spending was the largest ever research and development budget, which in general I'm supportive of, but at $139.7 billion dollars to find new warfighting technologies such as hypersonic missiles, as stated by the Washington Post.
Right.
That's a lot of money when we're starting to really feel the pain of inflation and
Yeah.
homelessness and all of that. That's a lot to spend on, hey, we want to find hypersonic missiles.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be delayed a few years. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I took my lovely wife and our youngest son out to dinner tonight. My two oldest boys are with my mother-in-law and father-in-law having a sleepover. And my sweet little wife, we're sitting at the table and you know how like remember at Blue Route when we would get those people that would come in and try to sell candy bars like as fast as they
Yeah,
can
yeah,
because they knew they weren't supposed to be there.
yeah.
That happened at DC Cobbs and I saw it and I was like, oh man, how long until these people get kicked out of here? And they came over to my table and this little girl, I mean, I was telling Anna, this little girl looks like she had seen some shit in her life and she was probably 12, um, which made me very sad.
Yeah.
Uh, but she came over and like rattled off this like, I'm with blah 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 blah, blah church and we're raising money for the homeless. And in my head, I wanted to so badly just be like, all right, cool. So tell me about your church. Where is it? Like, what is this money really for? Because it better be helping the homeless. But
I
I stopped.
believe that that kid thinks it's helping the homeless, but we'll see how much actually does.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. Like they had no like attire with the church like brand on
They
it.
weren't wearing a collar
No,
like a priest would.
nah. Yeah. But anyways, my sweet little Anna just goes, it, like, you know, it was the common like um 1 for 3, 2 for 5. And Anna's like, I've got cash. You know what I mean? Just buys these two candy bars from this little girl.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So hopefully that'll
Uh,
help with the homeless too. Something that I want to bring up in the omnibus.
okay.
And I'm actually, um, I was kind of hoping that you would bring this up before you would bring up defense spending, because I would feel,
Does it have anything to do with the electoral college?
yeah, like I thought this would be the first thing out of your mouth.
You would
Oh,
think, but I'm
yeah,
always mad at defense spending.
yeah,
But I'm
like,
also about protecting democracy.
yeah, I think that that's slightly more important at times. Anyways, um, so there's the Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act. Um, this was Senator Susan Collins from Maine and Manchin, which I think we all know where he's from. Um, so
West Virginia,
yeah,
Mountain
which I mean,
Mama.
pretty cool that it was a Democrat and a Republican
Yeah,
coming together on this one. But basically, it changes the way that presidential electoral votes are counted. It makes it harder for the lawmakers to vote against the president being sworn in.
yeah. So
I think it
two
went
key
from
ingredients here that I think are really important and not even mentioned in this in this article because it's kind of like in the nitty gritty.
yeah,
But number one, it literally stipulates that the vice president counting the votes
yeah,
is purely ceremonial. They
correct,
cannot object
yeah,
like
yeah,
January 6th. They were trying to, pressure Mike Pence into denying the votes and stuff like
yeah,
that. And the other thing is, it used to be one senator and one Republican from each side that could challenge a vote. And once the challenge was issued, all of a sudden, like this whole state, like whatever, it became a whole clusterfuck. Now it's 20% of the Senate and 20% of the House have to sign off as if it was the way it was, where it was one senator, one House member. It's literally
yeah,
20% of each on each objection.
right,
So it has become incredibly more difficult. And so you
yeah,
can't just be like, I'm from Arizona. I don't agree with the election. and claim election fraud and
Yeah.
challenge it that way, you have to have the evidence up front and presented and have 20% of that congressional body on your side and 20% of the other congressional body on your
Right.
side to challenge any state's election results.
I think
So
that's
Ted
fair.
Cruz is going to sit his ass down the next time there's a challenge.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But
Or
no,
he'll,
I do think that was one of the most important aspects of it is protecting democracy.
yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't really know how that fit into all this because it's usually like the omnibus is all this spending. And I know, the last time Bernie Sanders was able to get some things for climate change, and they did so again here for both pandemic readiness and like
Damn
preparing
it,
for the
dude.
next
That's
pandemic.
exactly what I was just gonna bring up. I thought that was another a really cool one too, and
Yeah.
that's another one too that was a Democrat and a Republican that worked on it together.
And so this was also very interesting. And I think the reason McConnell was able to sell it so well to the Republican Party is there were some bipartisan aspects of it, which does give me hope that maybe we're getting a little bit closer to restoring the status quo. And then from there, we need to fix because even prior, the status quo was relatively shit for the middle class over the last 3, 4 decades. That said,
Yeah,
it was good to see some bipartisanship, and I think the Democrats definitely conceded about the Medicaid stuff, where you know people are able to analyze Medicaid recipients a little
yeah,
bit tougher, and
yeah,
so I hate the idea of like helping those in need and making them jump through all these hoops in order to receive those benefits because that's how they lose those benefits. As
right,
someone who has been on unemployment and realized how hard it is to constantly certify and then like, oh my God, I've missed my certification time. I was
right.
super busy. Maybe I was at interviews that day and I missed my certification window. Oh my God, am I going to even have an unemployment check this week? I've been there. I've done that. It is very, very difficult. I
Yeah,
can only imagine what it's like for Medicaid. And so to have people have to jump through more hoops in order to receive those benefits, especially health benefits, kind of pisses me off, but I understand like part of legislation is compromise and
yeah,
they got this, huge spending bill off the ground.
yeah.
Um,
I do want to hit two more though before we.
sure, hit them. Yeah.
I didn't know if you were trying to close up there because I just want to hit two more
No,
really fast.
I'm never trying to close up.
So there was they put in something about TikTok as well. So now government phones will be barred from having TikTok. I don't think that's a bad idea. I'd always talk
I
shit
don't
about
either.
TikTok. I talk shit about TikTok a whole lot. I know you love your TikTok, but
Hmm.
full disclosure, when you send me one, I pull it up on a web page. I refuse to download the app. Um,
Oh, totally fine. And that's
um,
totally fine. I
pregnant.
think,
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I think all social media should be barred from government phones. Like
I
if
yeah,
AOC
I know you've
or
made that
Josh Hawley wants to
argument before.
tweet, have your own personal phone
Yep.
and tweet from your verified congressional
Yeah.
address. That's totally fine. Like AOC has her at AOC, and that's her
Yeah.
congressional, like professional. This is my site, or this is my Twitter profile.
Tweeter.
Good, go for it. But it shouldn't be
Yeah.
on a government phone because even like okay, TikTok is like tracking where you are. So is every other fucking
Everything
thing.
else.
I
Everything.
almost feel like if you're congressional, it should be for email, phone only, and text. And then it's like, okay, go back to like Blackberries from 2002. Then, like
Yeah.
they were secure. Put them on that,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about TikToks or Facebooks or Instagrams or anything like that tracking any of their data.
Yeah. Another one that was that kind of struck a chord with me, and I like this, and you know, one thing I really like about the place that Anna works at
Mm-hmm.
is they're very understanding of like pregnant to be mothers, nursing mothers. Um, and there's a lot of thought that goes into that. So like Anna gets 16 weeks off for maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's
And
incredible.
paternity leave
Yeah, and you get paternity leave
for
too.
paternity leave.
And
So men that
I'm
work
gonna
at the
look
business.
over for a nod here from her right now, but aren't they talking about increasing that time? So she's saying what they did instead now is now both primary and secondary. So, whether it's mother, father, mother, mother, father, father,
Yeah,
if they both work at Chase, they're both getting 16 weeks off paid. Doesn't matter anymore.
interesting. I
And
think I think that's very interesting. I know paternity leave is a very, very big discussion for a lot of like tech, Wall Street, a
yeah,
lot of companies are fighting for the best candidates, right?
yeah,
And they need all that help. So like this is really important. I want it to be federally mandated, similar to like this pump act. Now all employers have to give like space and time for pumping of breast milk. And
Anna
that's really
gets
important.
yeah, and Anna gets
But it
that's
needs to be leave needs to be
yeah,
guaranteed
yeah,
federally, at a federal level. Like it doesn't matter what state you work in or for what employer you work for, because that's how it's done in Europe. Like there are
yeah,
countries that give a year off to a mother, right? And like that makes sense because you are raising the future. We, it's in our constitution to do what's best for ourselves and
right.
our posterity. And we do not give a shit about our posterity in this country. We continually choose the short term. And this is a symbol of us trying to do what's best for that group.
Yeah. Um, shoot, I was just gonna say something else. Oh, Anna's also given she gets what do you get a 15-minute pump break, honey? She gets a 15-minute pump break too.
Yeah. And I know
You on the
at
back.
my
It's you
company,
now with the party. Yeah, we the ones that is just letting through the back. We the misfit.
Hold on, I forgot to pause the did you hear it?
oh, we're going on.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
All right. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know
Damn it.
that's fine.
Do you remember where you were at?
And I know at my company, like we even have like mother's rooms. So like if you are a pumping person, like you don't have to go like run into the bathroom, find a stall and pump like
Right.
sitting on a toilet seat. Like there is a nice, comfortable room made and specifically designed, and you have to like, you know, make an appointment for that room. So like it is like you're not gonna be like, oh shoot, I got a pump and like go in and someone's going to barge in on you. Like it doesn't happen. It's very, very well taken care of, and a lot of companies are doing that. I'm so happy to see that it's now federally mandated protecting mothers. I think this was perfectly demonstrated by Tammy Ducksworth, the senator from Illinois, war veteran, mother, etc. She actually breastfed on the congressional floor, which I thought was so fucking badass. And I think it's really bringing attention to mothers in the workplace. So really good to see.
Yeah. Anything else you want to hit from the omnibus before we sign off? We just hit over a little over an hour there.
No, I think like there's lots to talk about. So if the listeners of the MadLibs community like have
Yeah.
something
Let us
in
know if
more
you want to.
particular that they want us to talk about, like
We'll
shoot
deep
us a
dive further.
message. I'm happy to deep dive. Like I know there's a lot more with the elections and like certain protections of workers, climate change. There's a lot there. It's $1.7 trillion. So if there's something that we've missed and didn't get a chance to talk about, or something you're frustrated about or excited about, and you want to share that with us, we'll give you that shout out as usual, and then also dive a little deeper. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
I
think
do
that's all
actually
we got time for.
oh wait, what's that right now? Oh, I'm just getting a message in right now that one of our listeners, one of our best, most loyal listeners out there from the very beginning, wants to hear Brian talk more about student debt and what's going to happen in its future.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, we'll
So,
have to do an episode on that, an update.
yeah. All right. That was good.
It
That
was
was
good.
three. I feel like we did three topics there and we
Crushed it.
well, I was just going to say like we hit all the major points on it.
Yeah, and we hit all the real points, unlike George Santos's resume.
Yeah, we checked
Um,
off way more check marks. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let us know what you guys wanted to hear us talk about from now on.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us on Spotify, you can actually see our Zoom call. Right now we're recording, and we're going to be putting those up on YouTube as a way to kind of start building that YouTube channel up.
Yeah.
But super thankful for you listening. Spread the word, get more people into the MadLibs community. Super excited, and do good, be great. Love you.
Love you guys. I have to go back and edit. I said Chase.
I heard that and I almost said pause, but I'm like, oh, he can actually just cut it.
Yeah. I put a little marker. It's just before the hour.
Okay. And so, I don't know how you want to bleep it on the video.
I'm literally just gonna put in a bleep.
Oh, cool. Sounds good. All right. I'll see you, dude. For those watching on YouTube, love you.
Oh yeah, I have to hit the end on the record thing here. I know what I'm doing.
I'll see you, buddy.
Bye, dude.